Dear students, today we'll be covering what kinship is by Marshall Chalens. This is a seminal work by Chalens. It's one of the most fascinating work, and I love this work so much because it dismantles what we understand by kinship. Kinship is essentially tracing the kin or people you are related to. So it is essentially talking about the relatedness to people. Um, and traditionally, that relatedness was traced through blood or by marriage. But Charlene opens up this huge treasure trove and tells us that there are many ways of being, there's many ways of belonging. And he actually talks about this mutuality of being, kinship as a mutuality of being. And what does that mean? It means the symbolic notion of belonging, not a biological connection by blood. And that also means that people are deeply intrinsic to in each other's life. They have mutual personality. Life itself is intersubjective. So we, in many cases, if anyone dies in our family, we actually mourn and die with them and live with them their lives. So this is a mutual experiences of community that we belong to, the kin group that we belong to. This helps us to understand how kinship is locally constituted, and either it's by procreation or social construction or combination of both. This is also applicable for consanguineal relationship and affinal relationship, meaning relationship by blood or by marriage. It is also applicable for the group arrangement by descent. Now, kinship is not given by birth, rather it's the other way around. we take the social relationship takes meaning after birth, how we perform, how we are connected to each other. It's not given necessarily always. People who conceive children they might be connected to their offspring by great variety of transmitting substances. The substances includes blood, semen, milk, bone, gene, flesh, soul, etc. So in many cases, it actually differs how we understand kinship. And from today's example, I'm sure many of you will be surprised at how many different kinds of kinship counting is possible. The ethnographic report from Worldwide tells us that relationship at birth can be discounted in many culture and totally ignored. One of the examples would be Khmer in New Guinea. What happens among Khmer is that they don't know the connection between the children and who conceived them. Parenting, likewise, is in a reincarnation concept of many circumpolar societies like Inupiats. Totally ignores the birth parents and their relationship with their children. So what happens among the Inupiats is that children are named after a dead person. And so whoever they are named after, that becomes their family. So they have no connection to their birth parents. They will be raised by the family they were named after, the namesake's family. And in their lifetime, they have at least 4 to 5 such families. And that is that has nothing to do with their natal born. Kinship status are not set by the begetters or who conceived them, but the namers. And these namers might not be even their own parents in many cases. Similarly, Greenland Inuits children are named after their deceased relatives. So suppose if I have a daughter and if she's named after my grandmother was Nurjahan Begum. So if my daughter is named Nurjahan Begum, then my daughter's relationship would be absolutely similar to my grandmother. In that case, my my grandmother's child, meaning my mother, would be my daughter's uh, daughter's daughter, and I would be the grandchild in that case. So it's very interesting how these things work, and partly because it's a very small group of people, and lineage to count in, and all of this environmental and economic correlates played part in how kinships are perceived in a particular group. Um, it's very interesting that sometimes the mutuality of being or rootedness in each other can shape how the relationship would look like. For example, Carambola people in Madagascar, where brother can actually claim their sister's children as their own. They can claim that they came from them. In that case, in that kinship, the men who are mothers, women who are fathers, there's nothing inevitable about the kinship of procreation. So it's very interesting that even gender changes based on the relationship that you are asserting or performing or constructing around this relationship. The kinship of procreation is essentially different from relationship created postnatally. In New Guinea of Niebler Valley, kinship where sexual reproduction and social practices is produced by transmission of kopong or grease or fat is essentially a matter of all living organism and source of soil and source of life. So father semen and mother milk is kopong, but at the same time, same grease is found in sweet potato and pork. So whoever is consuming the food and sharing the food is also part of this, and having the common pool of resources, eating from the same land, are essentially the kin member and immediate family. This actually works for them because this is people from this valley are migrant, and children and grandchildren of migrants then can be fully integrated as kin folks. So brothers are as much related, children are as much related because they were essentially sustained by the same food they were consuming. The social construction of kinship may function as a necessary complement of sexual reproduction, and they actually may or may not forge a parental bond. Among Amazonian Jivaro, kinship of father and son is not only because the father contribute semen in the sexual reproduction, but based on the nurturing that he does during pregnancy and the nourishment he provides for the child. Similarly, among the Amazonian people, memory is essential linked to kinship and the shared life. The basis of shared life condition and shared memories, one can imagine why that constructed forms of kinship are legion. Ilonggots of Philippines, actually, they say that the shared history of migration and cooperation has the shared body. So it's essentially that migration and the shared experiences bind them together as kin folks. So if we summarize the whole thing, then the commonplace postnatal means of kinship would include commensality, sharing of food, reincarnation, co-residence, shared memories, working together, adoption, friendship, shared sufferings, and so on. The performative model of kinship and sociobiological evolutionary psychology are as varied as some of them are predicted on particular cultural logic of relatedness. And very interestingly, performative model also means that like people who are like in Inuit's group, people who are born on the same day are kings, or if you ever related to someone sexually, whoever you marry afterward, your children and that your ex's children would be considered as brothers, because even if they are not born out of the union that you had. So frankly speaking, Eskimo kinship is notoriously flexible. It also it's not constrained by rigid consanguinal kinship, but one can choose the universe that they want to belong, or universe of kin. While the flexibility of kinship system allows individual to choose who they want to have as their relative, but that doesn't necessarily ensure the license to decide how they should behave and act. So kinship is always an unstable category, an unstable practice, which is constituted based on the requirement of the people, and how they are related to each other, how they want to be related to each other. So with that note, I want to end the lecture. Thank you.